Hi, I'm John Liette from MindStream Analytics, and I want to share with you a little bit about member relationships within planning and budgeting cloud services and understand how to leverage them in forms and reporting to generate a dynamic output based upon the relationships that we tell it to. And what I mean by that is some forms we may want to see an entire hierarchy structure of an income statement, for example, or a balance sheet. And others, we may just want to see a specific portion of that, maybe just a single member, maybe that member and its children, maybe that member and all of its descendants. We can control the context of what we show in the definition that we have for forms and reports. So for example, what I have on my screen now is a form definition with some sample information that I've put together. And the way that it's constructed right now, I've defined my point of view for all my other dimensions, but then my rows and my output, I have just focused on a single member, a sample net income member. So if I preview this output to see how it will display, I can see that it's going to give me that one line, just the sample net income. Now, if I edit the definition of this member, I have kind of relationship context that I can use to determine what underneath that structure I may pull rather than just that summarized number. And what I mean by that is if I've selected my member that I have over here and click on the function selector in the member selection screen, I can see a variety of different member relationships to use to determine which members to display on the form. So by default, this is just showing the single member, but I can also pull the ancestors of that account if it has some, the children, the descendants, the siblings, or the parents. And I'll show examples of a couple of different ones of those and how they interact. So first, let's think about children. If I select the children of the sample net income, what I'm telling the form to do is to return any member that rolls up in the dimension hierarchy to sample net income. In this case, in this structure that I put together, there's only one child of sample net income, and that is the sample net ordinary income. So you can see that my form now pulls that single member, since it's the only child underneath that parent, to display there. Okay. Alternatively, if I go back to my edit screen to the member selection and select the function over here, the function selector, I could choose descendants. Now, if I choose descendants, it's going to look at the entire structure below the member I have selected. So the sample net income has a few different generations below it. And so since I've selected descendants now in preview, I will now see that represented in my structure here. You can see not only do I have the sample net ordinary income, which is the child of sample net income, I also have its children all the way down to the base members here with some sample data populated in them. So you can see this is more of a look at seeing an entire structure. So this enables us to quickly generate entire income statements. If we have our entire income statement structure built within the account dimension, we can just focus on net income, show the descendants, and boom, I've got a full income statement relationship of the accounts built for me. Additionally, you'll have noticed that within that context menu, there are some that say INC next to them. INC means inclusive. And the difference with those are that if I select those, it will also show the member that I have selected. In this case, sample net income. So if I change to descendants inclusive and click OK and preview, I will see the exact same thing as before, except now I also have the additional layer of sample net income. There are some scenarios in which you may want to see that member represented on the line, and there are other situations where you may want to see just the descendants, literally what we were seeing before. And which one you choose is entirely dependent upon the context of the report you're building, what you want to display, etc. A good example of this is the net income form, where often we won't pick the descendants in one block and then have another row where we pick the specific member so that we can always have it at the bottom as sort of a grand total line. So some other options that are in here, in addition to children and descendants and whether or not they're inclusive, are the level 0 descendants option. So what this does is it looks at sample net income, and in this case, it's inclusive, so it will show the sample net income as well. And then when I click OK and preview, this will skip all the intermediate parents and just show me the base members here of that structure. So the only base accounts underneath the sample net income member are these 4 revenue accounts. And so now these 4 revenue accounts are going to display here as a way of being able to show just the base member accounts, not wanting to look at the intermediate parents and that full roll up. And so you can see that there are some situations that would be the preferred method of display. And so you kind of have the options there. This works really well. Any of these members work really well in tandem with the suppression option in the grid properties. And we can talk about that more in another clip. But basically what that will mean is that we can turn suppression on so that we can pull the entire structure, but only list out the values that actually have data associated with them, which means that every time that we run an income statement form or whatever form that we're building using this logic, we will only have records for accounts that actually have data in the period that is being generated for, which can be really handy, especially if your business just happens to be that of where you have different data in different accounts and different times of the year and so forth. Or if you've added new accounts that are no longer applicable, or the old accounts are no longer applicable, then you can use suppression to kind of weed out the things that aren't needed. There's also member context for siblings. And so that means that I could show just the left or right siblings of a member within the same generation. A good example of that is for the period dimension, where maybe you only want to show time periods that have actually passed so that you can show actual data for them. So in that case, you can use like the left sibling of the last closed month to show actuals for, and maybe you show the right siblings of the last closed month and show forecast or budget data for those in a combined single view. Those are some good examples of how to leverage those. You can see there's other additional things in here, which most of them are pretty self-explanatory, showing next generation members, the next level 0 member, previous parents. So kind of looking at the top up, if we look at parents or ancestors. But most commonly, we're going to be using children, descendants, and the level 0 descendants to define which members we want to display on the account. So that's been it for this clip. Check out our channel here with MindStream Analytics for more useful tips with planning and budgeting and other EPM-based tools.